So I'm standing in the Mount of Olives looking down on the old city of Jerusalem and looking down on a city that is obviously one of the most important cities in history and religiously is central, especially to the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. For Judaism, we're looking down on the area known as the Temple Mount. It's the location of the Jewish temples. You had Solomon's temple, the first temple, that stood in that location for about 400 years until it was destroyed by the Babylonians in the year 587. And then the second temple was built there, a temple that would eventually become known as Herod's temple. And it stood there for 600 years until it was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70. And it was the destruction of the second temple in the year 70 that really shaped the very structures of Judaism, Jewish identity and Jewish practice forever. And there's really only one spot of that second temple that remains today, what's known as the Western Wall, the Western Retaining Wall at the bottom of the Temple Mount. That is the holiest place for Jews today, and a pilgrimage site and a place of prayer. For Christians, obviously, this is a very important place because it's central to the stories of Jesus. Herod's temple, which stood here, would have been the temple that Jesus and his family visited a number of times, and Jesus and his disciples visited. The Kidron Valley, just below where we are now, and the Jewish tombs all below us are places where Jesus spent time and gave some of his teachings and spent time with his disciples. And of course, it's in this area that the crucifixion of Jesus took place, and the resurrection, and the stories that are central to the Christian faith. And then Christians believe the Holy Spirit was poured out on the day of Pentecost, and the Christian church began. And then for Islam, this is a holy place. Islam calls this the Noble Sanctuary in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And the gold-capped dome there is a place where Muslims believe is associated with a very significant moment in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, when Muhammad was carried from Mecca to the Temple Mount here in Jerusalem. And in a very special night, he met with Moses and Jesus and others, and he prayed with them. And some traditions say he was lifted up, ascended up into heaven from that spot where the Dome of the Rock is, before going back to Mecca. And that experience both confirms the prophetic status of Muhammad and the authority that Muhammad represented in the giving of the Quran. So, a very important place for Muslims as well, making this the third holiest site in the Islamic faith. So all of this comes together in this spot, in the old city of Jerusalem, one of the most contentious places in the world, and yet it remains, for many people in the world, a place of inspiration and sometimes conflicting visions of hope.